You are on Tips and Streams with your host, Coca.
What's good, everyone? Welcome back to Tips and Streams. I'm Kokan, and I hope you're doing well and feeling locked in wherever you're listening from. All right, let's get to the daily picks. I've got 4 NBA matchups on the card today, so buckle up. We're diving straight into the action. The first prediction for today's NBA games is for the game between the Phoenix Suns and the Philadelphia 76ers. When I look at this matchup in Philadelphia, the first thing that jumps out to me is not the location, not the line, and not even the recent scores. It's the context. This is one of those games where timing, rhythm, and availability matter just as much as raw talent. Philadelphia comes into this one grinding. I've watched this team closely over the last stretch, and while they've managed to stay competitive, they've lived on the edge far too often. Close losses, tight finishes, and games that demanded maximum effort just to escape with a win. Even in their most recent victory, I didn't see a team firing on all cylinders. I saw a group that had to reach deep late to cover cracks that were visible early. Defensive lapses, uneven shooting, and stretches where the offense leaned heavily on individual creation rather than flow. Now, factor in the schedule spot. This is the second night in a row, and that changes everything. When legs are heavy, decision-making slows, rotations soften, and defensive intensity becomes harder to sustain. That's especially relevant here, because Philadelphia's interior anchor will not be on the floor, and another key piece is far from guaranteed. When I strip this roster down to what's likely available, I see a team that can score, but one that may struggle to control the tempo for 4 full quarters. On the other side, Phoenix is walking into this building with confidence, the quiet kind that doesn't need noise. I've been impressed by how connected this group looks. The ball moves cleaner, the spacing makes sense, and the defensive effort has been consistent night after night. This team doesn't panic when a run comes. They absorb it, reset, and respond. What really sells me is how Phoenix has handled these back-to-back situations. I see discipline. I see a team that understands when to push and when to manage possessions. They don't need to win every quarter. They just need to win the right moments. And that's where I trust them more in this spot. Phoenix limits shots, forces mistakes, and stays composed late. Against a Philadelphia team that may be forced to lean heavily on guards to create everything, that defensive structure matters. I also like how Phoenix closes games. They don't rush. They hunt matchups. They make you defend every inch of the floor. For me, this comes down to form, health, and clarity. I trust the Suns' rhythm more. I trust their balance more. And in a game that feels like it will be decided in the final stretch, I trust their execution. My prediction is simple and confident. I'm taking the Phoenix Suns to win this game in Philadelphia. That's my play. That's where my money is. And I'm riding with Phoenix to get it done on the road. Today's second prediction is for the game between the Los Angeles Clippers and the Chicago Bulls. When I look at this matchup in Chicago, I don't just see 2 teams moving in opposite directions. I see context, timing, and availability colliding in one very specific spot. And for me, this game is all about who's actually built to handle the moment, not who's been winning headlines lately. Chicago comes into this one riding a confidence boost at home, and I like the way they responded after that frustrating road loss earlier in the week. What stood out to me wasn't just the scoreboard in their last outing, but the way they controlled the tempo early and never let the opponent breathe. That's been a recurring theme for them in this building. When the Bulls get comfortable, the ball moves, shooters settle in, and the offense starts to hum instead of forcing things. From a roster standpoint, I like how this team is wired. Kobe White has grown into a rhythm scorer who doesn't need to dominate the ball to hurt you, and when he's spacing the floor confidently, everything else opens up. Ayo Dosunmu gives them an edge with his energy and shot selection, while Nikola Vucevic continues to anchor the interior with smart positioning and reliable touch. This isn't a flashy group, but it's a group that understands its roles, especially at home. Now flip it to the Clippers, and yes, the recent stretch looks impressive on paper. I won't take that away from them, but I always zoom in on how those wins came and who was available. This team has leaned heavily on veteran execution, and when everything lines up, that formula works. The problem here is the situation. Short rest, a tough travel spot, and most importantly, missing the very player who bends defenses and dictates matchups on both ends of the floor. Without their primary two-way star, the Clippers' margin for error shrinks dramatically. The offense becomes more predictable, and defensively, they lose that switch-everything presence that allows them to survive mistakes. I've watched this group long enough to know that when they're forced to grind possessions without that elite stabilizer, cracks start to show, especially late. Another thing I can't ignore is how these teams handle momentum swings. Chicago, despite its inconsistencies, tends to respond well when it senses an opportunity at home. The Clippers, on the other hand, have shown vulnerability when asked to repeat high-effort performances on back-to-back nights, particularly on the road. Legs matter. Focus matters. And in this spot, those small edges add a, this isn't me fading the Clippers as a team. It's me backing the Bulls in a very specific situation. Home floor, cleaner rotations, better rest, and a clearer offensive hierarchy. When I stack all that together, it tells a pretty straightforward story. My prediction is this. I'm putting my money on Chicago to win this game and cover the 2-point spread at home. I trust their balance, I trust their energy in this building, and I trust them to take advantage of a Clippers team that's stretched too thin in this spot. The third prediction for today is for the game between the San Antonio Spurs and the Houston Rockets. When I break this matchup down from top to bottom, I keep coming back to one thing: trust. And right now, from a betting perspective, I trust San Antonio far more than I trust Houston to separate from a quality opponent. Yes, the Rockets are at home. Yes, they've stabilized a bit after a rough stretch. But when I dig into how these teams are actually playing basketball, not just winning games, the Spurs check more of the boxes I care about. Houston's offense can look beautiful when it's flowing. They push the pace, crash the offensive glass, and when their top scorers get downhill early, they can put real pressure on a defense. The problem I keep seeing is control. Turnovers still pop up at the worst possible moments, and defensively, they're not always sharp when games slow down late. That matters against a team that knows how to execute. San Antonio, on the other hand, plays with structure. They defend with discipline, they rebound at an elite level, and they don't need one player to carry the entire load. I love how balanced this roster is. Night to night, the scoring can come from different places, and that makes them hard to scheme against. Even on the second night of a back-to-back, I don't see a Spurs team that panics or forces the issue. They play within themselves. Their defense travels, their rebounding keeps them in games, and their ability to string together stops is exactly how underdogs stay alive for 48 minutes. The first meeting between these teams told me a lot. San Antonio wasn't lucky. They controlled that game. And since then, I haven't seen enough consistency from Houston to convince me they can suddenly flip the script and pull away comfortably. Add in the recent trend where San Antonio continues to compete and cover even in rest-disadvantaged spots, and this becomes a number I'm more than happy to take. So when I put everything together, form, matchup, defensive reliability, and how these teams close games, my read is clear. My prediction is simple. I'm taking San Antonio to cover the 6-point spread in Houston. I expect this to be a tight, physical game where the Spurs stay connected from start to finish. My money is on San Antonio keeping this one close and making Houston earn every single possession. Today's last prediction is for the game between the Los Angeles Lakers and the Denver Nuggets. When I look at this matchup in Denver, the first thing that jumps out to me is how strange and unstable both of these teams feel right now. From my perspective, this is not about records or standings. This game is about availability, matchups, and which team can actually put a functional rotation on the floor for 48 minutes. Denver deserves respect for surviving a brutal stretch of injuries. Playing without their engine changes everything they do offensively. They've stayed competitive by leaning on ball movement, shooting confidence, and Jamal Murray stepping into a heavier leadership role. I'll give them credit for that. But I also watched their offense completely fall apart in their last outing, and that's the risk when you're running thin. When the shots stop falling, there's no safety valve. What really concerns me here is consistency. Denver has had nights where they look connected and disciplined, and other nights where the offense stalls early and never recovers. At home, that volatility is even more dangerous. I don't see a clear solution for extended scoring droughts, especially against a team that can attack you from multiple angles. Now let me flip it to the Lakers. I won't pretend they've been steady. They haven't. I've seen defensive lapses, ugly stretches, and lineups that struggle to stay in front of anyone. But what changed for me recently was their fourth quarter execution. When this team locks in late, they slow the pace, protect the paint, and let their stars close the door. From my angle, this game tilts toward one major mismatch. Denver simply does not have a defender who can consistently deal with Luka controlling tempo, forcing switches, and dictating where help comes from. That matters, especially in a building where crowd energy can swing fast if the road team lands the first punch. I also like the way the Lakers responded defensively in their last game. Holding an opponent under 100 points tells me the message landed in the locker room. It doesn't mean they fixed everything, but it tells me effort is trending in the right direction. Yes, Denver is tough at home. Yes, they've been resilient. But I trust the Lakers' ability to close games more than I trust Denver's ability to generate clean offense for 4 quarters with this roster. This is not a blowout call from me. I expect resistance, I expect runs. But when it gets tight late, I know who has the ball in their hands, and I know who I trust to make the final read. My prediction is the Lakers to win this game in Denver. I'm riding with their stars to control the tempo, survive the noise, and get it done late.